So open up a window, please, and let a little air in for me. I'm feeling restless now, and I wanna get out. It's nothing but a worst case plan, carried out with my own hand. Maybe it's hopeless, shrouded in fear and doubt.
Hello and welcome to episode 63 of Let's Hear It. Today's guest is Paul Hoffman from the band Greensky Bluegrass. He's going to show us a 1890s Washburn Parlor guitar. Paul is really known for his mandolin playing in Greensky Bluegrass, but like most musicians, originally started on guitar and writes songs on guitar. And he loves this little Washburn he got about 10 years back. And he's put a lot of work into it, keeping it alive. He's also going to show us a little bonus guitar, which is a guitar made by a guy named Michael Stewart from All Four Guitars, a similar parlor guitar to this Washburn. And Washburn started making instruments in the late 1800s in Chicago, made lots of parlor guitars, various kinds of instruments, and eventually became Lyon and Healy, George Washburn Lyon, Lyon, and Patrick Healy, and they became legendary Chicago instrument makers. Kept that Washburn brand name alive for quite a while. It still exists. I don't know who owns it or what the heritage of it is, but they still make some cool little guitars, and this late 1800s parlor guitar he's going to show us is a very special one. So let's say hello to Paul Hoffman.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
In Colorado, is it 3 feet of snow or 80 degrees?
Yesterday it was almost 80 degrees, and today we have a fresh 4 inches outside, maybe.
I didn't even know that. Really?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 60-something again tomorrow and for the rest of the week, though, so it's like a one-day thing.
That's awesome.
Spring. That's what spring's like here. But the water is good for the plants and
Definitely.
for keeping our forest fires down, so I'll take as much as we can get.
Yeah. So what have you been doing for the last year? You've been writing tunes. I know your band, Greensky Bluegrass, is getting ready to play some gigs in May and June and hopefully a lot more of the rest of the year. But what have you been doing for the last year?
Primarily, I have been a father to my young daughter who's about to turn 2 years old. So in this strange twist of fate, I guess my life timed out in a perfect way for this time off. I've been able to spend a year with my partner and my daughter, and it's been an amazing year to be with her. We've been potty training this week, so that's what I've been doing.
Great.
But yeah, I've been writing also. Greensky has been working on a new record or records. I don't even know. We have a ton of material, more than we've ever had. We spent more days in the studio in the last year than we've ever spent on one project because it was a way for us to be creative together safely. We played some social distance shows. We did a Halloween thing and we did a stream thing. But the studio was nice because we didn't have any complications that we were like unfamiliar with navigating. Social ethical responsibility of when and where to announce shows and how to do it and all that stuff started to get really complicated. So being in the studio, we could just be ourselves.
Yeah.
Safely, of course. We got tested, wore masks around close proximity and all that kind of thing. But so a bit of writing, and last March we had a conversation about getting in the studio and there was kind of a shortage of material. And then we committed to some time starting in the fall, September, October, and we just all started pouring out a bunch of stuff. And it's been great. I was just there again in Asheville working on the record for last week.
That's great. And is the same producer who produced the last one? That's your buddy down there,
Dominic.
right?
Dominic, he's a bass player. We go back a long way with him in friendship, and he used to be in a band called Steppin' in It that I adored. We all did, still do. Joshua Davis, good friend there, songwriter. And Dominic works for us also. He does kind of like an assistant manager, office kind of stuff for us. So it's great. It's the crew, it's our team. we've been engineering with the same guy for a lot of records too, so we had him as well. We worked in Vermont and in Asheville, and we bring him wherever we go as well. So
that's great. Looking forward to hearing it. And obviously, you're mainly known as a mandolin player, but my guess is you probably started on guitar when you were younger, and obviously still play some guitar. You're a fantastic mandolin player, but I'm glad that you have this little Washburn Parlor guitar you're going to show us.
Yeah, I have a great mandolin, which I would love to play for you and talk about too, but the more I thought about it, I have more to say about this instrument, I think. My mandolin, I'm not really good with the technicality of the instruments and the wood and all that kind of stuff, but it's one of the greatest mandolins I've ever played, that's for sure. It is the greatest. I've never played one I like more. It's a Nugget made by Mike Kemmenser in Michigan, where I'm from. I know him personally, and he made it for me. But this guitar I picked up kind of on a whim and I've had a really interesting relationship with. I wrote a ton of material on it. I've put a bunch of work and money into it. It's a labor of love. It's because it's old and it is hunky. It's like a fat neck and it's cracked. The neck's been rebuilt. I could go into some more specifics when we get there, but yeah, it's a Washburn Parlor guitar. I did a little more research before talking to you to clear up what my memory of what I learned about it and was real and what was actually real. So it's called the 1897 style new model, which is a thing. So it's turn of the century sometime, not necessarily 1897. It's got the original Washburn seal in it that says that it's fully guaranteed for the term of 1 year from the date of original purchase, provided this label is not mutilated. And there's a number on it. It looks like it's 23 of 55. But there's a big crack right through it where the back of the guitar was once cracked. A friend of mine who's a luthier in Michigan, Jake Robinson, I own a couple of his guitars. He's rebuilt the back. 2 years ago, it was a lot worse than this crack right here, and it was kind of cleated inside. And then he shipped it to me, and when it came back, the whole butt right here was cracked in and collapsed from shipping. So I sent it back to him, and he fixed it again. I've had the top right here rebuilt, and the bridge rebuilt, and the neck reset probably 4 times. I've owned it for about 10 years. I think I bought it in 2011 on tour in Santa Cruz, California. First time I'd ever really bought an instrument on tour. It was a total whim thing. Anders went in there to get his dobro fixed. I picked up this guitar, which was in a lot worse shape then, and just played an open E chord on it and said, shit. And the guy standing in the store was like, is something wrong? And I was like, I can't afford to buy this guitar, but I have to. 1 chord, I'd never really played anything old or a Parlor like this before. And it's got this huge beefy neck on it. I just loved it right away.
Yeah, I love the Parlor guitars too. I definitely gravitate towards the smaller guitars, and I like the ones that are attached at the 12th fret. Especially when you capo it the way you are, you only have a little bit of real estate there to play in, which is awesome, I think. Are you using nylon strings or steel strings on there?
Steel strings, which of course is not designed for. With the recommendation of these luthiers who've done all this work on this, I've started using lighter strings on it than I used to because it's not designed for this, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
But yeah, I changed the strings today and I couldn't remember. It was strange. I think I bought it 10 years ago. And as I was changing the strings today, there's like the E strings are really difficult to get into the slot once the other strings are there. And then one E string rubs on it. It seems not well done or not done correctly. And I was having a hard time remembering the last time I changed the strings. I think maybe when it got repaired, or maybe less than once a year I change the strings on it, which is certainly not the case with my mandolin.
Yeah, I find with like the older guitars, when you're playing them and they sound great, I'm always really hesitant to change the strings, whereas on a banjo, or even I have a few mandolins as well. I don't feel that way. I change the strings a lot, but on the old guitars, there's some mojo that's happening, and I get nervous about changing the strings. So I'm impressed that you changed them.
I got it out last night, and I didn't love the way it sounded. I haven't played this guitar in quite a while. I recently have been writing and playing my other guitar more often. But this guitar, like I said, I wrote on for years and years. A couple records, I think almost all the songs I wrote on this guitar. And it's a mojo thing. I didn't, like you said, I didn't know until I bought it or played it for the first time. There's this mid-range quality to a Parlor. My other guitar is like a slope shoulder or Grand Auditorium or something, and it's Brazilian too. And it's just like, it's real big. And it's got a lot of bottom. Chords, if I play a chord, if I play an E chord or a G chord or something and I'm singing along, it sounds huge. And that's great. I can write real well if it sounds huge. It's encouraging. But something about the way the mid-range voices in this guitar. Like this stuff. The middle of the chord, that's where I sing. And it helped me for writing, just like finding melodies. I just liked the way it was like less guitar to sing over. And maybe is a lot of it too.
Yeah, well, I think that's why when you pulled it off the wall, some weird cosmic thing that happens with musicians when you meet an instrument and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I could do something with this. And that's why you were like, oh shit.
Yeah, I knew right away. I'll never forget the moment. It was like $700, $750, or maybe that's what I paid for it. Maybe it was marked like $900. The guy who had done the repair hadn't done a great job on all of it. I actually think this bridge is a rebuild since then. I remember I made an offer of like $700 or $750, maybe it was $1,000. And they were like, we'll have to check and see if we can take that. It's a consignment piece. And I resigned myself to, okay, if they don't take my price, then that's fine. I'll walk away. I couldn't really afford it at the time.
Yeah.
And I got the call that they would accept the offer. And I was like, dang it. And I went and bought it. I'd also never had a guitar on tour before. So I remember like, I was thinking as we were preparing to do this, there was like a show. This is in Santa Cruz. So I guess we were headed south. And we were playing in like San Diego. I think we had played the Winstons in Ocean Beach. And I remember one night I just sat in the van playing my guitar on the back bench after the gig alone. And I played in there so late that I just slept in the van. I never even went in my hotel room. Like this during the honeymoon phase of this guitar.
That's great.
Then in the process of like touring this guitar back to Michigan, it just like really suffered. Like by the time I got it home, it did not sound like the same guitar anymore. It had never seen all that climate change in who knows how long. And so since this $700 guitar that I was skeptical about buying, I probably put several $1,000s into.
Well, it's a great mission to rescue that guitar and keep it going for probably another century. It'll go.
You know, I look around and I can't believe how many of these things there are. It makes me wonder how many they actually built. As far as I can tell, too, I was telling you, I'm not actually sure when it was made. They claim they don't have serial numbers. Mine has one. My camera probably won't get that, but mine has one up on the headstock here. Oh. But it makes me wonder if the neck is original, because the neck, I don't know what kind of wood that is, but it doesn't feel fancy for layman's term. I know that too that this hardware is not original. You can actually see too there's holes where there used to be
different tuners.
Maybe the original tuning apparatus, which looked like this. So when I look online a little bit too, it seems like after a while they stopped using Brazilian for the back and sides. This is probably an older one. It's actually got a crack in the neck right now that I need to get addressed.
Well, that's what happens with old guitars. They need lots of tending to, but they're worth the work, and I'm glad you did that. And go ahead and noodle away or play us a song or whatever you feel like. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I'll play a little song I wrote recently. up a window, please, and let a little air in for me. I'm feeling restless now, and I wanna get out. It's nothing but a worst case plan, carried out with my own hand. Maybe it's hopeless, shrouded in fear and doubt. But I feel worthless without a purpose, until I can sing for you. I'm not loving what I'm good at now, not good enough at what I love somehow. Always feared this might happen if I didn't surrender my dream. Stuck with uncertainty, deciding how it defines me, without the meaning that my expressions glean. But I feel worthless without a purpose, until I can sing for you. Until I can sing for you.
That's a beautiful little tune there. Is that going to be on a Greensky album?
I believe so. Yeah, that's not the whole tune. There's another verse and stuff, but yeah, it's called Until I Sing.
That's beautiful.
I didn't actually write that on this guitar, but
sounds good on that guitar, though. Do you play any finger style, or you mainly play with a pick?
A little bit. Sometimes I actually wrote that kind of that way.
Nice.
A little bit. I'm not just for writing. Sometimes just casually. This guitar sounds great, quiet.
It's beautiful.
Otherwise, I'm kind of a pick snob. I used tortoise picks.
Awesome.
These strings are a little bit maybe too light. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it sounds fantastic. And let me just ask you. So, did you grow up in Kalamazoo, Michigan?
I grew up in Muskegon, 90 miles from Kalamazoo, and then moved there to go to college, and that's when I met the guys in the band.
I see. Did you guys used to pilgrimage to Elderly Instruments in Lansing, East Lansing?
Sure did.
Yeah.
Very often. That's where Dominic, we were talking about earlier, stepping in at that band. They were like elderly employees and guys who worked there. So that, and then our engineer, Glenn, lives in Lansing too. So that music store is close to the band. I bought a mandolin there. My second mandolin, I guess. Our banjo player, Bont, I sometimes think of this. I forget it, but he paid for half of it for me. He offered to buy it for me.
What a guy!
As an upgrade, an early leap of faith from my friend and colleague there. I was playing like a Fender that sounded like hell.
My friend has a Fender mandolin, and he's like, what? It just doesn't sound good. And I was like, they're not really known for their mandolins. It's a starter mandolin.
Yeah, I played it for probably 6 months, 9 months or something, long enough to know that I wanted to be more serious about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks, man. Love seeing that guitar. I'm glad to hear that tune, and looking forward to you guys getting back to work, and maybe you're going to put out a double album. Who knows? Or 2 albums.
You know, I was going to show off this other guitar too.
All right, let's see it.
So in the process of owning this guitar and having my friend and luthier in Michigan, Jake Robinson, do a lot of work for it, he eventually gave me a Parlor guitar that he had made years before. He's like, you need something more reliable. He gave me this Parlor guitar, which I didn't ever fall in love with as much as this or the other guitar that he made. It's also Brazilian. But then I moved to Colorado, and this friend of mine started making guitars and named his guitar company after a song of mine.
Oh,
so he offered to build me a guitar, and he did a copy of my Washburn. So this guitar, you'll notice, has like that same waist and butt. It's all the same measurements and stuff, but it's got like X bracing, and the neck is different. Clearly the headstock's different.
It's a cool looking headstock. What is the
this
name
has
of
been
his
pretty cool.
company?
All 4 guitars. It's really cool guitar. It's all this different Cuban mahogany, and again, I'm not really good with all the woods and stuff. This inlay right here is salvaged whale tusk, so it's like prehistoric ivory. He really went all out for me.
Wow.
This guitar doesn't have the same like forward push that guitar has. These strings are probably really old too. That Parlor thing is like this, narrow. Bah.
Yeah.
This one doesn't quite have that, but man, it's a great guitar to play, and it's beautiful. And I love that the story of my commitment to that old guitar brought me a new guitar that's just like it. Suddenly I've become a Parlor guitar guy.
That's great. Well, the Parlor guitar, they're easy to sit around on a couch with, and when you get a dreadnought out, you're like, it's fun to play. But the Parlor guitars are really easy just to like hang out and noodle on. I love the small guitars.
Give it a fair comparison, same key. I think I've been camping with this guitar. The strings feel real dull. But, that's what these guitars are all about for me. Just sitting around writing on them. They're not really performance guitars.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever performed really with either of them.
Okay, I can tell the difference in that, the sound of that. I don't know what the word is, but there's maybe a broader sound where the Washburn is a little more focused right at you.
Yeah, it's got a little more low body. I wish I had put new strings on this too, because it's not a fair comparison.
Yeah.
You can just hear how you'd be able to hear even better in my mic, but it's beautiful. It's cool. He even did the tailpiece. It's got the same sort of like design.
Nice, and that one's got a pickup in it, or is that just a strap?
It does have a pickup.
He
did the backs kind of similar.
I see.
I guess that's just the wood.
Well,
Groovy.
It's good to have guitar making friends.
Yeah, especially when you have instruments that need a lot of work.
Well, all right, Paul. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to sit around and chat about guitars.
Indeed. And hopefully I'm not going to be living too far away from New Haven, so who knows? Maybe I'll come up to one of your shows there in May.
Hey, yes. I'd love to see you, man.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks to Paul Hoffman for joining us today and showing us that 120-some-year-old Washburn Parlor guitar, and also a much newer Parlor guitar. Maybe it's only a year or two or three old, made by Michael Stewart at All Four Guitars, and hopefully that one will live at least 100 years more as well. And I'm looking forward to hearing this next couple albums that Greensky Bluegrass are working on. Maybe it's 2 albums, maybe it's 1. He said they have a lot of materials. And they've got some upcoming socially distanced gigs. If you check out their website, they're really, really fantastic live band. Bluegrass, but a little rock and roll spirit as well. Check back in the next couple days for another episode of Let's Hear It.